Hello, guys. This is Lydia, the lifestyle coach, and we are talking about the 12 days of treatments the diet industry gave to us. And then we're going to talk about keto and low carb. Okay, so keto. And there's sort of the low carb thing has been a thing for a long time. So in the 80s, it was all about cut out all the fat. And then after that, it was about cut out all the carbs. Neither one of those things work, but we can talk a little bit about that. So let's talk about our experience with a low carb. The idea of low carbohydrates is you cut out the carbohydrates in your diet. And so because your body uses carbs as energy, if it doesn't get energy from your food, then it takes energy from your stored fat. And so it is a way to try to manipulate your body to lose weight. And so that's why people do it. It's a popular way to diet. Keto is like a really extreme version of that, where you actually have sort of like a moderate, because a lot of low carb will be like high protein, high fat, right? Eat all the steaks and all the cheese and all of that jazz. But then with keto, it's actually moderate protein and then very, very low carbohydrate. So you're not even eating like vegetables that are higher in carbohydrates. So it's just a more extreme version of that. And then the idea is with keto to get into ketosis, which means that you have ketones in your body or keto adapted when you cut down your carbs low enough and you sort of change the way that you use energy so that you're changing energy to be running on fat instead of on carbs. That is the theory. There's a lot out there about like health benefits of keto. And one thing to note, you guys, is you only get the health benefits of something if you actually do it. So a lot of times people will be like, I'm doing keto for the health benefits, but the side effect is that they're binging on carbohydrates while they're doing it. And so they're not getting any sort of health benefits. It's actually creating more of disordered eating. And so let's go ahead and talk with our incredible panel, our grads, our tribe, our awesome group here about keto or low carb and what your experience was. Sort of the pros and the cons, and how it does or doesn't work, and then we'll go from there. So, Leanne, tell us a little bit about your experience with keto. What were some of the pros, some of the cons?
Okay, well, you really hit the nail on the head, Lydia, when you said that you get the benefits when you do it. But I would find that I could go so great on keto all week long, and then over the weekend, I would binge on all these high carbohydrate foods. And so every Monday, I'm starting all over again. Some of the pros of the keto were that it had some really delicious foods, like a big old ribeye or fat. Fat is tasty. So I love butter. But then, of course, the foods that were restricted were just crazy. One bagel for breakfast, forget it. Your whole entire system is blown because you have to stay very, very diligent in order to maintain that state of ketosis. So it was very difficult to do that. I mean, there were vegetables that I couldn't even eat. Peas, corn, like there were just only a handful of vegetables that you really could eat.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what was tough about it. And I love pastries and stuff, but even like simply rice, brown rice you couldn't have. So the foods were so very restrictive. It was too difficult to maintain.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And that's the thing. It's like you guys have to think about sustainability with whatever you're going to do, right? So it's like if eating in a way that you were like, this is impossible to eat this way for the rest of my life, I can't just have butter forever, like, then that's something to consider for sure. And that's the thing is anytime that you restrict a food, and the more that you restrict it, the stronger your cravings are. And so what you'll find is that if you're on a diet that is villainizing and really heavily restricting carbohydrates, that your cravings for carbohydrates, like if you try to cut out sugar, you start craving sugar. If you try to cut out carbohydrates, your body really starts to crave carbohydrates because your body needs a variety of foods. And psychologically as well, the restriction creates the cravings. So a lot of times people through keto or through some sort of low carb will actually start creating an eating disorder where they're binging on carbohydrates. They're binging on pastries and bread and sweets, those sorts of things that are high carb. And this is something that I did like hardcore keto, you guys. And it was one of the last diets that I did. It was this isn't a diet. This is a lifestyle. This is for my health. Like, even at the point where I knew dieting didn't work, but I will give you a window into how hardcore I was with this, because with keto, it's very restrictive and it's very extreme. And there are different levels to extremeness. And like my pattern was, I did the very most extreme version. So I want to give context to this, because if keto is the first diet that you do, you may have a different experience. This was after a long stream of dieting, and your body will get more and more resistant to dieting. So it'll be harder to lose weight, and you'll have to do more, and your body will fight against your diets more, the more diets that you do, because it's adapting and trying to essentially guard you from starving over and over, right? So I did keto 100%, perfectly measured, by the book, like leafy, greens fried in bacon grease 3 times a day. Cause I like, okay, well, if these are the 2 best things to eat, I'll only eat those 2 things. Like I was by the book, perfect keto. In about a week, I stopped sleeping. This is one way that my body fought back. I stopped sleeping. I did not sleep for 2 weeks straight. Then I lost my ability to drive safely because I was so sleep deprived. Then I lost all of my energy, where I couldn't stand up for very long because I was so incredibly weak, and my hair started falling out. That was my keto experience. Oh, and I didn't lose any weight. And this is how committed I was to the lifestyle of keto. So, like the diabetic strips that you use, you take your blood if you're diabetic to test for ketones in your blood to see if you're in ketosis. I was literally like pricking my finger, like drawing my blood every single day to put on ketone strips to see if I was perfectly on track with keto. And then I was still so committed that even after my hair was falling out and I had no energy and like I couldn't drive anymore, I hired 2 keto coaches to help me to make it work, because I'm like, well, I can't just lose all my hair. So the first keto coach was just like, it's a mindset. It's a mindset. Like, if it's not working for you, it's because your mindset isn't. So I tried really hard to fix my mindset. I still wasn't sleeping. I still wasn't losing weight. It was still like seeing my body shut down. The other keto coach that I hired, she was giving me advice like that I needed to start like chugging salt water, because with depriving all of my carbohydrates, like my body wasn't able to hold enough sodium. That's why I had like no energy. So if I would chug salt water all day, it would help me to balance my electrolytes a little bit more. And then I was able to walk for a little bit further. Like, I could stand for longer. So that was my keto experience, you guys. Like, after you guys, I just kept doing it. Like, I was just like, I'm going to make this work. Didn't work. My hair did eventually grow back. Yay. But you guys, like, the power of carbohydrates. I started eating carbohydrates again, and I could sleep. And to this day, anytime that, like, even if it's by accident, if I don't get enough carbohydrates, my body fights back and I stop sleeping. Like, my body's really sensitive because of all the damage from dieting over the years. Like, my body like literally fights back and like tries to make me like stop doing that. So anyway, that was my keto low carb experience. And then I just did a lot of low carb before that, but keto was sort of like the most extreme, and it was really broke down my health. So that didn't work. And Data, why don't you tell us a little bit about your low carb experience?
Yeah, so I do not have any experience with keto. That sounds insane, but I have a lot of friends who, have done it. Some with varying levels of success. For me, it was more that I was really interested in being plant based, and with plant based, I really did feel good, and so it was really a positive thing for me to go plant based. And so what this meant is just substituting. Usually, especially when I was in school, don't have quite a lot of money to, to get all the fancy greens and all of that stuff. So I had a lot of pasta, rice, all the things that quote unquote are, bad for you in a low carb world. And so when I started to go plant based, I was substituting, just every type of, standard, pasta, rice, all of that stuff with substitutes like cauliflower rice or just sautés, not having any base, quote unquote to them. Yeah, so that was more of my experience. It wasn't super. I think the biggest thing about that was when if you're plant based, and of course, like apples have carbs, and so you're like trying to get that out, and so I'm peeling all the apples, and I'm trying to remove all the stuff, and of course, like I'm doing, at this time I'm doing raw vegan, so I'm not. There's not a lot in terms of like there's no processed food, and so I'm really trying to make the food. The point of raw vegan is to eat as nature intended, and I'm making the food not have carbs or as little as carbs as possible, so that I can hopefully lose a couple of pounds. It's just like completely the backwards way to have a plant-based lifestyle, which is supposed to be closer to nature and better for your health and things like that. So just kind of weird.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that experience. So I would say like the pros are that there are some health benefits, like with certain diseases and issues where like if you stick to it and you're doing it for health reasons, like there can be some benefits there. We find that it's extremely ineffective to do low carb or something like keto for anything related with weight loss, because it's the same thing as it creates the cravings for the very things that you're cutting out, and then doesn't fix your relationship with food in any sort of way. It really distorts your relationship with food because you're villainizing certain foods, you're binging on certain foods because you're trying not to eat those things, and then you lose your ability to know how to eat, right? Because you're just like, oh, only these 4 foods are like the good ones that I can have, and so you really lose a lot of trust in your own relationship with food. So yeah, again, it can be like there can be some temporary weight loss, but anytime with any of these diets that we're talking about, you guys, anytime that you lose weight, you are like anytime you restrict your body to try to lose weight, you are literally teaching your body to gain weight quickly back. You're teaching your body to yo-yo. There's a lot of detriment to your health. So restrictive dieting teaches your body to be heavier overall, long-term, permanently. And so that's a really important thing to keep in mind. So thanks for tuning in for another episode of our awesome little reviews of the 12 days of treatments. And we will go from there and see you guys on our next episode. All right, bye.